If you missed the last video where I ranked the 15 most diverse roller coasters I've ridden, go check it out because this is basically the sequel to that topic. Today we're going to be taking a look at the 10 most versatile roller coaster models. Oftentimes, if a genre of ride from a manufacturer is capable of performing lots of unique elements or various intensity levels, it's bound to be very successful. Many of these are among the best coaster models ever created. In order to rank these, I'm not necessarily looking at the ride model's potential, but rather the existing coasters that have been built and their differences. This is the exact reason I'm leaving out the B&M Surf Coaster. It's an absolutely brilliant design that involves stand-up seats that have the ability to move vertically to corresponding forces. Problem is, there's only been one of these built, and that's Pipeline at SeaWorld Orlando, which is a great ride, but since there's nothing else to compare it to, I can't just give it the benefit of the doubt. Same logic applies to the S&S Axis Coaster, which naturally, because of the style of ride that it is, will be able to perform lots of different elements and sensations due to the rotating seats. I've been able to try the prototype of this model at the manufacturer's facility in Utah, and I was a huge fan, so I hope in the future it's able to crack this list. I also decided to exclude any manufacturer's family coaster model because it's so vague that of course it's going to be versatile, and I didn't want those to dominate this list. But now that we have that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive in, literally, with number 10, the B&M Dive Coaster. For rides that are often considered one-trick ponies, it may surprise many of you that I decided to put this in the top 10. But here's the thing, in recent memory, several parks, especially those with a smaller budget, have opted to add in mini dive coasters, aka dive coasters that hover around the 150-foot mark. These do something completely different from the bigger dive machines, and that's focused around pacing and back-to-back elements. They've still got the vertical drops and hold brake that the model is known for, but I feel like with these, the rides get better as they progress. On the contrary, you have the original 200-foot dive coasters that are all about those massive free falls and intense sense of speed. And to cement its ranking, a few of the more modern, large-scale dive coasters do a little bit of both. Huge drops, but more of a full package experience with various types of inversions and even the occasional airtime hill. Dive coasters in general have become guilty pleasures of mine for years now, and I think they deserve more love from the angle of their diversity alone. Number 9, Rocky Mountain Construction iBox Coaster. This one should be pretty self-explanatory. Since its debut in 2011, this model's widely been considered one of the best in production, and part of the reason is because you can do so much with it. Now sure, some of these rides can sort of blend together because of their excessive amounts of ejector airtime. But I still think it's commendable how you can build iBox coasters at such different sizes, and usually each one has an element or two that is unique to this style of ride. Think about how Twisted Cyclone and Iron Gwazi are part of the same genre. It's actually kind of surprising in my opinion. And I know it didn't start out this way, but the fact that Lightning Rod is mostly iBox now, to see that this track could withstand a launch was very impressive. Of all these rides, the steel track is about as smooth as can be, and I just think it's so fun experiencing all of these different layouts with that in mind. Number 8, Mach Ride's Extreme Spinning Coaster. It goes without saying that the potential with this ride model is off the charts. The fact that you can have vehicles which rotate through already intense layouts was totally innovative in my opinion. And we really got to see Mach rides go all out when you compare the original to the most recent extreme spinner, the Ride to Happiness, which is my favorite roller coaster in the world. Thing is, it feels nothing like Time Traveler, and that's because the spinning is relatively controlled due to a magnet at the bottom on Time Traveler. So this kind of allows it to feel like a family thrill ride, while the Ride to Happiness had its magnet removed, making it completely unhinged. I really look forward to seeing how unique they can build these layouts in the future, because the first two were one hell of a strong start. Number 7, Gravity Group Wooden Coaster. In general, wooden coasters aren't usually too different from one another because they can only do so much compared to steel coasters. However, I feel like what the Gravity Group has done with their attractions is really quite impressive. And keep in mind, this ranking does not include their family wooden coaster model, which is another fantastic and versatile coaster design. We've seen some incredibly unique coasters come from this model, like Switchback with its spike and backwards element, Boardwalk Bullet being the most compact woody on Earth, Hades 360 with the longest tunnel on any roller coaster, and the Voyage being the longest wooden coaster with a singular lift hill. And that's just scratching the surface. Keep in mind, this is one of the few manufacturers capable of taking wooden coasters upside down successfully. Those are just a few of the reasons the Gravity Group is among my favorite coaster manufacturers in the industry. Number 6, Gersauer Eurofighter Coaster. Even with how phenomenal some of these other models are, I feel like this is where the entries just aren't negotiable. The Eurofighter might even be a little low. For those of you unfamiliar, this is Gersauer's smaller scale thrill coaster that typically utilizes small trains and features their signature vertical lift hills and beyond vertical drops. Though to be fair, we have seen them build these very big like what you see with Takabisha and TMNT Shellraiser, two rides that feel drastically different from the tiny Eurofighters like Hydrus and Adrenaline Peak. But if that weren't enough, this style of ride is also capable of launches, and you can almost always expect a really forceful one if the ride does not have a vertical lift and beyond vertical drop. Something I find very impressive about this model is because of its compact nature, you can fit these coasters basically anywhere. Even the massive TMNT shell raisers in a freaking mall, but there's also examples like Iron Shark being located at the edge of a pier, and Defiance on top of a mountain 7,100 feet high in Colorado. Number 5. Chance Rides Hyper GTX Coaster. Now, I know there's only 2 of these out there, but when the recent Twin Mill Racers was announced for Arizona, I was just kind of blown away by how little it resembled the prototype Lightning Run in Kentucky Kingdom. While that's a small 100-foot tall coaster chock full of ejector airtime and quick transitions, Twin Mill Racers is a launch coaster, also not on the largest scale, but it has more of a focus on inversions. Is it technically cheating having this spot on here since Twin Mill Racers is still under construction? Maybe, but I just really find it hard to believe that these rides fall under the same genre. That's why I believe the Chance Hyper GTX deserved a top 5 spot, and I can't wait to see what they do next with this model. Number 4. Premier Rides LSM Launch Coaster. Admittedly, I've never been a super big fan of Premier's coasters, but even I'll admit their LSM launch coaster has been quite the success, and some of these rides are quite fun. I mean, you could start with the Skyrocket 2, one of the most successful cloned coaster types in production. It's known for its compact footprint and swing launches where you travel forwards and backwards. We've seen them do this a lot more on their recent attractions as well, such as Full Throttle and Icebreaker. But it doesn't need to be this way. You have plenty of coasters with standalone launches and many unique elements, with one of my favorite examples being West Coast Racers at Six Flags Magic Mountain. I never would have expected them to build a quadruple launching coaster that duels, but they did, and it turned out really well in my opinion. This is the model that proves Premier Ride's potential, and I hope we see them do more creative layouts like the ones that I mentioned in the future. Following in the same footsteps is number 3, the Mach Rides Launch Coaster. And don't confuse this with the Extreme Spinner, which are also Mach launch coasters, but this model specifically features standard sit-down trains with more conventional layouts. Well, usually, but not always. Something I love about these rides is they can really fluctuate by intensity. If a park asks for a family Mach launch coaster, they'll do it, and usually they do it really well. In my opinion, Sleeky Dog Dash is a bit too tame to the point where it doesn't do much of anything, but Manta is an example of a spectacular family coaster with just the right amount of thrill to make it interesting for everyone. They can build real big too, like what we saw most recently in China with Beyond the Clouds, featuring that massive top hat, which reminds me more of something Intamin would do than Mach. It's another ride type that can just do so many different elements, and it's always exciting when a new one's announced. Number 2, Gersauer Infinity Coaster. This one has a lot in common with the aforementioned Eurofighter model, but it's made out to be the bigger version for larger parks. Normally this comes in the form of not only huge layouts, but a larger train capable of holding more people. It's not always this way, but I'd say 9 out of 10 times you can expect these infinity coasters to be pretty massive. And I appreciate all the different parks that have taken a chance on this model because it's allowed Gersauer to really show off its potential. Literally almost every infinity coaster does something unique, so let's run down the list. Fury at Bobbejaanland Land is the only coaster on Earth with a boating feature that allows riders to choose whether they'd like to travel forwards or backwards. Hang Time at Knott's Berry Farm was the first coaster not from B&M to feature a true hold break before the drop. Mystic at Wallaby Rhone Alps has a peculiar incline spike that sends riders in reverse midway through the ride. The Smiler has more inversions than any other coaster out there with 14, and it's split by 2 separate lift hills. Madagascar Mad Pursuit in Dubai is entirely indoors and more of a family thrill ride. And then my favorite example there is De Schwartes Cannon at Hansa Park, which alone would have put this model in the top 10 because it's one of the most unconventional rides in the world. Just by looking at it, you should be able to figure out why. I've always been a huge Infinity Coaster fan, but in my eyes, there's one model that's capable of doing just a little bit more, and that's the Intamin Multi-Launch Coaster. Now, not only is this the most versatile coaster model out there, but it's the best one period because of how spectacular their execution is. Intamin has built these rides in so many different shapes, sizes, and intensities, starting with the original Maverick, which was the ride that told parks you don't need to build super high and fast in order to be world class. It's only 100 feet tall, but it's one of the best roller coasters in the world. This led to rides like Velocicoaster, Two Taudis, and Batman Gotham City Escape, 3 coasters that blend exceptional theming and basically every element you could ever ask for on a coaster. Cheetah Hunt and Steel Dolphin are examples of Intamin multi-launch coasters that are toned down to cater to families, and you can make these full package experiences like what you see with Hagrid's at Universal Orlando too. Storm Coaster was one of the first roller coasters to perform a vertical launch. Shred the Sewers is fully indoors. Soaring with Dragon was the first to utilize a swing launch with that ultra-fast switch track, and Dueling Dragons as well. Look at it, what more do I need to say? I'm just repeatedly in awe at all the different things Intamin's been able to do with this model, and I cannot wait to see them bring this technology to Saudi Arabia for Falcon's Flight, the world's tallest, fastest, and longest roller coaster. Bam, what a way to cement my ranking. Let me know in the comments what other roller coaster models may potentially deserve a top 10 ranking, and be sure to subscribe to Coaster Dash for more content like this in the future. If you'd like to support me directly, I'd appreciate it if you could go check out my new merchandise store, but otherwise, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.